Today we're doing law of cosines. This is something that is a nice backup if you don't have a corresponding side and a corresponding angle. You can do this for when your triangle gives you a side, then an inscribed angle, and then another side. So like two sides and the angle in between. Or if they just give you all three side lengths, you can use this to figure out all three of the angles. Now, it looks nightmarish. They're all the same equation there. They just rotated the letters out depending on what you're looking for. They're all the same though. So let's look at the triangle they gave us here. I don't have one set of a corresponding angle and its side. The only angle they gave me is 100 and its corresponding side is B. I don't know what that is. So let's figure it out. We're going to look for side B. So we're going to use this formula. Again, they're all the same. The big idea is the side measure that's over by itself is going to correspond with the cosine angle that you have on the other side of the equal sign. So here we're going to say b squared. We don't know what b is. B squared equals a squared plus c squared. Side A is 7, so we'll have 7 squared. Side C is 5. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter if you flip-flop that order. It doesn't matter. And then it's minus 2 times those same two numbers, 7 and 5, times cosine B. And B is 100 degrees. You know what's wild? In most calculators, you could type in the entire right side of this equation, hit enter, and it'll just tell you the answer. That's pretty cool. My calculator does that as well, not to brag, and I'm fine if you want to do that. For this first one, let's maybe take it in a couple steps here. 7 squared is 49, 5 squared is 25. 2 times 7 times 5 is 70, so we have minus 70 cosine 100. So 49 plus 25, 74 I think. 49 plus 25. I feel silly typing that into my calculator, but it's the end of the day. My brain is exhausted. And then let's go ahead and just put this into our calculator. 70 cosine 100 degrees. And I have, it came out to negative, so we'd have minus negative 12.155, blah, 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 blah. Cool. Now, again, your calculator would just do all this ordinarily, which is why I like it, because now I have to remember minus negative is really the same as plus positive. So it's really like 74 plus 12 point whatever, which is 86.155. And that's b squared. But we just want side length b, so we're going to have to square root both sides. So let's see. Minus, whoops. All right, square root of that. I have 9.2819999. So b equals, let's just round to the nearest tenth, 9.3. Now again, that should already make sense based on what we learned yesterday. That has to be the largest angle, and this is the longest side. If we're thinking ahead and we're like, well, which one's going to have the smallest angle? It's going to be the one that corresponds with the smallest side. The smallest side's 5, so angle C will be the smallest angle. Great. Now, to figure out one of these other angles, you could use this formula again. Wouldn't recommend it. As soon as I have a corresponding angle and side, I go back to the law of sines. It's just easier to work with for me. So I'm going to say sine of 100 degrees over its corresponding side, 9.3, equals, we'll pick another one. Let's get sine of A over A's corresponding side, which is 7. So if we were to cross multiply this, it would be 7 times sine of, actually all we have to do is multiply by 7. We'll just multiply that up top. So we'll have sine of A equals whatever 7 times sine of 100 divided by 9.3 is. Let's see. 7 sine of 100 degrees divided by 9.3. So that comes out to, and we're going to round to 3 decimal spots here, 741. Now, remember when we're looking for the angle, we have to hit that sine inverse button. Looks like that on most calculators. So I hit that button, which is in the same spot as my sine button, but sometimes you just might have to hit the shift key or the second key or just scroll down a little further. So 0.741. And it comes out to 47.8-ish degrees. 47.8 degrees. That's angle A. 47. Now we need one more angle. There's some options. You could use the law of cosines. Nightmarish. You could use the law of sines. Not too bad. Or you know that all 3 angles add up to 180. So 100 plus 47.8 is 147.8. So we could do 180 minus 147.8. Let's see, 0.2, that'd make it 48, 50. So angle C should be 32.2 degrees. These 3 angles should add up to 180. Whew. It's tough, man. You got to get a corresponding side and angle. You can pause it here because I'm about to go on to the next one. Oh no, they didn't even draw it for us. You know what? That's not even a problem. You could draw it, you could do a quick sketch if you'd like, but you know that side A is going to correspond to angle A. You know side B is going to correspond to angle, whatever I just said. So it said A is 35, B is 42, and C is 50.3, meaning A, the smallest side length, is going to have the smallest angle. C, the largest side length, is going to have the largest angle. We could work on whatever you want here. Let's say they gave us A. Let's go with A. So we're going to figure out angle A using this formula. So let's drop in our stuff here. So we have side A squared, 35 squared, equals the other 2 sides squared, 42 squared plus 50.3 squared. It's always minus 2 times those same 2 numbers, 42, 50.3, and then cosine of the angle that corresponds with this side. This was side A, so we're going to be doing cosine A over there. So, calculator, help me out here. 35 squared, 1225. Look, you could do this in 2 steps. Whoops, I forgot the squared there. I'm just going to square them and add them together in my calculator. 42 squared plus 50.3 squared comes out to 4,294.09. Minus, let's see, 2 times 42 times 50.3 is 4225.2 cosine A. Tough, ridiculous, right? But we can get rid of this just straggler 4294.09 by subtracting it. So if we did 1225 minus 4294.09, we get negative 3069.09 equals negative 4,225.2 times the cosine of A. Right? All I did was subtract that 4294.09 from both sides. Now here, we're trying to isolate the cosine of A. It's currently being multiplied by this, so we're going to divide it on both sides. So negative 3069.09 is already in my calculator, divided by negative 4225.2 equals, and we're going to round this nasty decimal to 3 decimal spots. So did I change color? So I have 0.726, 0.726 equals cosine A. And then we can do that inverse cosine. And I have 43.4 degrees. So angle A is 43.4 degrees. Now we have a corresponding side and angle. So you could hop back to the law of sines if you want. You can keep using this thing. I'm going to use the law of sines. So sine of 43.4 over its corresponding side. That was angle A, so it corresponds with side A, 35. And we could just pick another one. Let's work on B next. So we don't know what angle B is. Sine of B over side B is 42. If we're trying to isolate that sine B, we could just multiply by 42. Pew, pew. Sine B equals 42 times this, and then divide by 35. 42 sine 43.4 divided by 35. I have 0.825 if I round. 0.825. Then we're going to do the sine inverse there. And I have 55.5 degrees. So that's angle B. Hey, that's a good sign. Side A is smaller than side B, so angle A is smaller than angle B. We could do law of cosines for angle C. We could do law of sines for angle C. Or we know that they add up to 180. So if I did 43.4 plus this 55.5, let's see, 989. So now we just have to do 180 degrees minus 98.9 degrees, which, let's see, 99, 100. So it should be 81.1 degrees for angle C. Let's see, double check. Let's add them up. 81.1 plus 43.4 plus 55.5, 180. Delightful. Now, because of rounding, if this was on a test or something, if you did rounding on all of them, yours might come out to 180.1. That's okay. It's just a rounding thing. That's all right. We have two more of these. All right. We'll pick up the pace a little bit. We don't have anything that corresponds. I'm going to find side F, which corresponds to the 65 degrees. Again, these don't use A, B, and C, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. We just have to make sure that this, the side we're solving for, is all by itself. So we'll say F squared equals the other two sides squared, doesn't matter what order you put them in, 54 squared plus 49 squared. It's always minus 2 times those two numbers, 54, 49, times the cosine of the corresponding side. So we're looking at side F, so we would use angle F, which is the 65 degrees. Now, I told you before, you could put the whole right side of the equation in your calc, and it'll spit out an answer. So I'm going to try that here. 54 squared plus 49 squared minus 2 parentheses 54 parentheses 49 cosine 65. All that right side for me in my calculator came out to 3080.504. Now that's F squared, so we still have to square root it. So you can probably just hit square root in your calculator, and then like maybe you have an answer button and it'll throw that answer back in there. So square root answer came out to 55.5 for F. It's not too bad if you can put the whole right side in your calculator. 55.5. Now, feel free to use the same equation, law of cosines. seriously, as soon as I find one corresponding pair, I hop back to the sines. It's just easier for me. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. So let's say I'm working on h now. So we could say sine of 65 over the corresponding side, 55.5. If we're working on angle h here, we'll say sine of h over the corresponding side for h is 54. We're getting rid of divided by 54, so we can multiply by 54 on both sides. Sine of h equals whatever this is, 54 sine of 65 divided by 55.5, 0.8818, so we'll call it 0.882. And then we're going to need the sine inverse of that. 61.86, let's call it 61.9. Now again, I just took the answer that it gave me. I didn't round it off at all. I just did sine inverse of the answer. So yours might come out to like 61.8. That's all right. We're all good. Cool. We have two angles now. H is 61.9. So I'm just going to do 180 minus these other ones. So if we did 65 plus 61.9, that would give us 126.9. If we did 180 minus that, 127, 130, 50 more. So that gives us 53.1 degrees for angle G. Challenging. They're getting easier though. We got one more here. And this one, whoo, you are in for a treat. Oh, they gave us all the sides again. We need an angle. What's your angle, man? Doesn't matter which one we work on first. Let's say we're working on H. Remember, the corresponding side goes all by itself here. So if we're working on angle H, then I'm going to put the 9 all by itself here. 9 squared equals the other two sides squared. Ooh. Okay. This is interesting. There's a bit of a pickle here. This is an isosceles triangle. If you remember from your geometry days, if these side lengths are the same, that means these angles down here are going to be the same. They're going to be equal to each other. So maybe I should find one of those angles first. I don't have to. I could do it the way I was about to do it. But let's go ahead and find one of those instead. Let's go for F. So F's corresponding side is 14. So we'll put that by itself. 14 squared equals the other two sides squared. 9 squared plus 14 squared minus 2 times those same numbers, 9 and 14, times cosine of that corresponding side. So side 14 was corresponding with angle F. So we'll say cosine of F. So 14 squared is 196. I'm going to square those and add them together. 81 plus 196 is 277 minus, if I multiply these, 2 times 9 times 14, we get 252 cosine F. Now look, if that was 196 equals 277 minus 252x, you would all know what to do. It's the same steps. We'd get rid of the 277 first by subtracting it. So 196 minus 277 is negative 81 equals negative 252 times the cosine of F. It's being multiplied, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 252. And it comes out to positive 0.321. Cute. That's cosine F. So then we have to do the cosine inverse button. And I have 71.25, so I'm going to call it 71.3 for angle F. which means angle G is going to be the same thing because, again, it's an isosceles triangle. So those two angles are going to be the same. Now, if we add those up, 71.3, or just did times 2 since they're the same, that would be 142.6 degrees for those two angles. Then we would just have to subtract it from the bone 80. 180 degrees minus 142, 37.4 degrees for that last angle, angle H. 37.4. Now, we started solving for that angle first. Let's say we solved that one first and we got 37.4. The other two angles are going to be the same. So if we wanted to set up an equation, we could be like 37.4 plus x equals 180, which that would give you 37.4 plus 2x. And then you could subtract the 37.4, and it would come out to the 142.6, and then you would divide it by 2, and that would give you the 71.3 for both of those other angles. That's it, man. Law of cosines, pretty tough. Pretty tough.